trans women should not be a part of the feminist movement.
I'm trans, so I was born female. Now I present as male.
But I see a woman still. I feel feminine energy from you.
That's all right. I totally
so when you
respect
say
that.
you're a man, then it's like, I don't see that.
Emotional damage.
What do you define as masculinity? It can be subjective from culture to culture.
What do you define masculinity
I think masculinity is whatever you want it to be.
A woman's whatever you want it to be. So then why do you want to be a woman? What are you even subscribing to? I hate the way that they talk about this because it feels like a Weasley way out of answering a question that's really fundamental to the whole discussion.
Women have more privileges today than men.
I went back and forth on this one.
I just have to ask. You guys in the comments can answer. If you had to choose, knowing that you supposedly believe that women are more privileged, would you choose to be a woman? Now, of course, two things can be true at the time. You could choose to want to be a man and say women are more privileged. But me, personally, whatever privileges women may have, I just feel like men's privileges suit me a lot better, and I prefer those than whatever women got.
You just like peeing standing up. Just say that.
I like not having periods. I don't care what nobody says. If I had to pay a monthly phone bill every month in blood, nah, nigga. Blood and cramps, I would hate that shit.
That's good.
Nah, I get seasonal fucking colds, and I hate that shit. Monthly cramps with mood swings and blood?
Yeah.
Nah, bro. Nah. I'm just saying, like, we can have this discussion, but every time I think about the female experience, I'm like, I still choose the male experience. And, even like when they mention certain things. That's me
and the hormones, it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Dealing with the kind of hormones that they deal with, god damn.
That's me.
That's a hell of a phone bill. What's that? Overseas calls?
And also, like, internationally speaking, like, maybe in a North American or Western context, like, I can understand, but, like, on a whole scale, on a worldwide scale, like, there's no way I'd ever want to be a woman over a man.
Yeah.
You start traveling, and that becomes more and more apparent. I mean, you can't even travel to a lot of places as a woman. I'm gonna be honest.
You can't travel alone.
I will risk it. So, I don't know. There's just certain things that I think about every time this conversation comes out. I'll be honest with you. This is not me sipping. I just wouldn't choose to be a woman.
I think women have distinctly different privileges than men have, but with this new feminist movement that is arising, more of the third, fourth wave, we are finding women are placed and pedestalized above men in a lot of ways. There's affirmative action hiring and scholarships where women, sometimes even regardless of academic standing or achievement, are prioritized above men. But men also have different privileges that they get to access. I struggle to say more, but I think I do agree with the feminist movement now there is more.
The feminist movement has been all about women acting like they don't have rights and acting like they have it pretty hard in the modern day world. I can't think of a single thing that I don't have that a guy has, or
that
you know,
they only have.
like,
I would say the one thing I would say is the safety thing. That's the only thing that I would say is that women are disadvantaged from. By nature, women are not as physically strong. I mean, you're physically strong, but as physically.
I will say this, I actually disagree with her on this point, and I'm surprised this is the one we disagree on. In terms of safety, like, men are overwhelmingly the victims of violence. Sure, it's at the hand of other men, but it's like the idea that men have this privilege of safety is like, no, we don't. I don't buy that whatsoever.
We don't have the privilege of safety, but if there's something that happened, I was about to say, if there's something that happens, we're more likely to do something about it, but no. But no. The minute I said that, I was like, yeah, we're more likely to do something about it because we're stronger, but no. The aggression's gonna come to our way still. Someone comes with a knife, someone comes with a knife at me. Someone comes with a gun, shit. It's just that it's a feeling that they can't do anything about it, right? They don't feel as safe because they're walking. People are gonna think twice to fight me and to fight a random girl. But yeah, we are more victim crimes, yeah.
It's not that men are safer. I'll tell you, men are definitely not safer. It's that we just, as a society, care more about women's safety because we consider them a quote-unquote vulnerable population. It's the same thing with kids. The amount of times people talk about protecting kids, you would think there's an epidemic of like kids being abducted every single day, but the truth is, the vast majority of violent crimes happen against adult-oriented males. So we want to protect kids, and it's a very logical thing because they're a vulnerable population. In that same token, we view women kind of similarly. But dudes getting murked every day. Listen.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about like the judicial system. When it comes to, let's say, domestic dispute, if a woman calls the police, they automatically show up, arrest the man. This the Duluth model, I think is how you pronounced it. And that's already in place. It's not necessarily like a right or anything, but it's certainly in all of the police departments. Is if feminism is all about equality, why would you automatically arrest a man? When they arrest him, his name is in the newspaper automatically. The fact that a woman can say Jane Doe and she doesn't have to put her name out there, what skin in the game is there?
And there's so many instances of that. I know men personally who have had domestic violence within the relationship with children involved, unfortunately. And the woman attacked the man in front of the child, and he's still, I know 2 instances personally, and he's still fighting to get the child back. That's from the Me Too movement. Congratulations. You guys got that.
It kind of invalidates the...
that shit went really quick by me.
Yeah, I think she's trying to say that's a result that's been around since before. So you know what it is? It's just like sometimes people have a problem with like something they see in the world, so they just mention some buzzword like the woke mind virus. Family courts have been biased towards men before Harvey Weinstein, lady.
Her throwing that shit out.
Yeah, I get what she's trying to say. Is that ideology? I think is what she's.
I guess.
I think it's a mixed bag. I don't think the Me Too movement was inherently harmful. It's the Me Too movement when you couple it with something like believe all women. That's when it becomes
and the victimization of women who aren't really victims.
The prompt is: do women have more privileges? We have privileges simply by virtue of being women. We have.
Shout out to this girl bringing it back to the conversation and being balanced. Lady with the sleeve. Shout outs to her.
We have privileges in family court, and we have privileges as far as being believed and forgiven. It's that's something that should be acknowledged.
I think she made the strongest case for the privileges that women have. The idea of being believed or inherently seen as some kind of victim worthy of praise or whatever the fuck it is. The family court bias, affirmative action, these are all things that are extremely valid that as a man you just don't have access to. So I'm glad that she was like very concrete, very precise, and then she made a good case. The other ones, it was a little bit iffy in my opinion.
But that's like the thing about being believed is very recent. Women were not believed. They were dismissed when they were saying shit like that. And that's why the Believe Her movement happened. It's because they were dismissed. They were in the past, whenever they were talking about the stories. Oh, well, if you did that, what did you do? You know, what did you do to get in that position? Or,
but the problem says women have more privileges today. So yeah, did that shit exist in the past? Probably not in some cases, but today that's definitely true. Yeah.
Can I have the disagreeer step forward?
I appreciated the distinction of more versus different privileges. You can't just use a broad brush and paint the entire debate and say, all right, well, this is men have more than women, that's it. Like women that must inherently then have no privileges. That's not how it works. And that's where we start to get into the idea of like intersectionality, where another woman who had a different experience, if it was a trans woman, if it was a woman of color, if it was a woman who was...
But I don't think we're including trans women into feminism.
And I think we definitely should.
Oh, based woman.
Whoa.
Yes, let's go.
Whoa, now it's getting...
I'm not gonna lie, there's something very cringe about a male saying we should include trans women in women's rights. I don't know. There's just something about like to me that's the
thing.
Because you're assuming that everyone adopts your ideology that trans women are somehow in the same boat as females, and they're not. They deal with their own struggles, their own experiences, and those are not akin to what women go through traditionally. So lumping all that shit together is when you really start to hurt the trans movement, because it just makes women like, yo, these people don't go through what I go through, so why are you lumping in their rights? You know what you're doing to women? You're LGBTQing them. You throwing in other shit that ain't their experience into theirs and then say they gotta adopt it. That's a no. That's an L. So shout out to this woman, because I agree. And there's just something really weird about male feminists that always makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think it's just there's a lot of things there. I believe that. There's also the fact that people have been dressed in sheep clothing. Wolves have been dressed in sheep clothing. So it's like, it's very weird where you have that thing happening. You're like, okay, but what's in it for you though? Because it's not about that equality thing. So what's I've seen too many people lowering people's guard with that shit. Saying that they are, oh yeah, I'm pro-black and they're white, and I'm like, are you hiding fetishism? I can't help it.
Okay, you know what this is?
What?
This is their blue hair. This is that I'm not special, I'm different.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for them. Because sometimes, especially when they talk about this with other people who don't share their political views, there's an air of condescension. I'm like, bruv, you're not driving. Why are you talking so loud?
I've had some white
You know
women.
what I'm saying? Like, you a passenger. Chill out. Why are you trying to drive
I've
the
had
car?
some white women do some shit like that to me.
Yeah,
And
trying to lecture me about black stuff. I'm like, yo, if you don't get the, you're not telling me. You lecturing me.
Take a back seat, like when you try to explain. It's funny because you're a man and you're explaining to a woman things about feminism and being a woman and stuff like that and why they should or should not. And then shouldn't you be all about mansplaining? But that's what you're doing right now. That's what you're doing. You're trying to explain the experience to someone. That's weird. I don't know. I have a hard time with that.
Here's the thing. He might not be wrong, but there's just something super strange optically about a man lecturing a woman about who should be included in women's rights.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have like some fringe view. She has a popular view. I think most women agree that trans women should not be involved in women's rights. It's their own separate fight.
Yeah.
I think that trans women should not be a part of the feminist movement because a man, just because they, wake up and feel like they can be a woman one day, could come in and then suddenly know what it's like to have a period or know what it's like to have a child. It's anything from men replacing women in sports to men replacing women on podcasts during Women's Month and when we're talking about women's health, or you've even got biological men who think they're women going to the White House speaking on behalf of all women.
I do have a question for you based on the prompt, though, because you've lived in both experiences, at least socially. I'm curious, when you transitioned to male and people started perceiving you as male, like most people did today, what privileges changed for you, or what did you see enter your life that you didn't have before?
Yeah, and that's sort of where a lot of my beliefs in feminism do lie, is because being out into the world as a gay woman was the way I was seen. Men treated me definitely not nearly as well as they did. I was bullied in school. I had people call me slurs, and it seemed like it was because I was threatening to like the male structure that we are in, where it's like male and female. Because I was a female who liked females, I was somehow infringing on that, and so they didn't like me. Things change naturally when you socially transition and are perceived by the world in a different way. When I transitioned from being perceived as female to the world to just pretty much passing or blending full-time as male, was that I got a lot more respect from other men. People listened to me and took me seriously. In a social passing setting, people aren't going to harass women who are around me if I'm walking with them at night, which is just a benefit I never thought about.
With caveat, actually, so I say that yes, there are some privileges that women have that men don't, but also there's privileges that men have that women don't. I don't think women are more privileged in our society because I could get a woman pregnant and I could just run away.
They could get.
You can just run away. Technically, by that definition, she can run away too.
There's women.
But the courts are coming for that booty. And I wouldn't call that a privilege. Yeah, I get her pregnant and be on the run from the law. Privilege! Like, you're going to have to pay at some point.
That's the first time out here being a fugitive.
Yeah. Try not paying your child support for you going to jail. And there's enough cases about that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I don't see women having more privileges than men because we don't have the same, there's no way to objectively measure it.
Well, and in the scenario that you pointed out, I mean, if a woman was pregnant, she wouldn't be able to get an abortion in most
in some
parts
states,
of the country.
yes.
Yeah.
In some states,
that's a major disadvantage.
Yeah.
You know who that guy is? He's one of the producers at Jubilee. Who would have thought he's a feminist? Shocker.
You can't get an abortion, but children can go get a gender change at 12 with a
Feels
parent
like you're
at
very
15
fixated on
without consent.
That's not true.
It feels like you're very fixated on that.
I know the laws as well.
I went through this.
I know, in some states you can, and in Thailand you can go at 16 and get your everything cut off.
Guys, it's less than 5%.
I know.
It doesn't matter.
It's such a small subset of the population.
But you can't say that about. It does matter though. When you have a child, you're not a parent.
That's between the parent and the child.
Can I ask you a question though, or ask the group a question? There's more world leaders who are male, and typically I think
good.
leadership.
That's a good thing.
I know it's.
Ah, damn, lady, can you chill? Just chill. 2 seconds.
Did you see how she wearing her titties out?
Just,
she hasn't been chilling the moment she walked off set.
Yo, chill 2 seconds so we can understand a point. That's probably not even the point that he was trying to make. Jeez.
Let's find out what he's saying.
It's weird coming from me, but I do want to know, it doesn't bum you out that it's less likely for a woman to become president?
I don't feel bummed out because I know that if I want to pursue something that I want to do, I have every capability to do it in this country.
I don't feel bummed out. Women should not be in positions of extreme leadership like presidents, et cetera, because we're too emotional.
Hey, shout outs to her. She's not just spewing the red pill. She came in dressed as a red pill.
Yeah.
Shout outs to her. Let's listen.
Two red pills.
She said, you're too emotional, ladies. You can't be leaders. Let's listen.
Your question about leadership, I think, is a very poignant question because a lot of people are asking that. Why don't we see more female presidents? Why don't we see more female CEOs or Fortune 500 companies? And again, it goes back to those gender differences. There will be women who will be exceptions to the generalized rule of what it means to be feminine, and those women you will see succeed in extreme leadership. But we should also discuss what the conditions of extreme leadership are. We're talking 80-hour work weeks, subscribing yourself to your career and nothing else.
Going family and children.
Psychologically and biologically, women tend to lean in the direction of not making those choices for themselves, while men are highly competitive, they are highly analytical, systematic, they're willing to put in that time and take extreme measures to gain career status.
That's a better argument than, we're emotional. That's a way better argument.
She illustrated the points very, very well.
Yeah.
I think having her on the panel is probably the best decision they made so far. Yeah, fantastic, Willie was said. Yeah, I mean,
it depends on the choices.
Is it true that women report higher on narcissism? Sure, but men report higher on levels of aggression, which I think in a leader can sometimes be a very bad quality too.
Typically, the people that are more in power are going to have male attributes. And that's why women choose not to do necessarily inherently those jobs. And the ones that do usually quit. And we see that in law firms as well. Law firms, people are talking about, we need to have more women. We need to have more women. The amount of people that quit those positions of powers or the highest positions are higher when it comes to women than when it comes to men.
Exactly.
But in an egalitarian society, it's about having that choice to make that decision.
Yes,
but
we do, but we already have that choice. If I want to go own my own company, I can.
Restricted.
Like I said in the beginning, we've all agreed that the beginning of feminism was going in the right direction.
Humanizing women.
It was humanizing women. It was making them equal to men. It was giving us the same opportunities so that we can go vote, so that I can go get a job, so that I can drive a car. Like there's other countries that I know that we weren't talking about other countries, but if you want to talk about feminism, go protect the women who get beat up for driving a car in other countries.
Men are falling behind in society.
I just think, we have amazing men here today. It's an honor
thank
to
you.
be on this panel with you, to see this masculine energy. However, I know that men are not able to be men anymore. Because of the feminists, modern feminist propaganda, I coach men in my practice and they tell me I don't even know what I can do on a date anymore. Can I ask a woman out? Am I gonna get in trouble for this now? I really like her. I kind of want to put my hand around her waist, but maybe that's gonna, I'm gonna be all over social media, this kind of thing. And I think men don't have the balls anymore to just stand up and be a man, be dangerous, be fierce.
I want to respond to a lot of what you said.
Please.
Does anyone else want?
You make a really interesting point.
I suspect these guys are going to say men are falling behind because they're so restricted by what it means to be masculine. And so if they'd adopt a more feminine.
However, I feel like a lot of the reasons why men can't actively express masculinity in a positive way is because of the patriarchal structures that we have.
All right, let me just listen.
What?
You know what? I feel like I've heard this 100 times. It gets so tiring after a while, but let me hear it.
Part of where I'm
We cannot be man.
Because of patriarchy. This is why. Let's at least hear him why before we make a judgment.
Part of where I'm coming from with this is I'm trans. So I was born female. Now I present as male. I came out socially and medically transitioned at 18.
Okay.
The feminist movement is what helped me feel empowered enough to be who I am and be a man.
And no disrespect to your process. I know it's a very strenuous thing that you go through, but I see a woman still. I feel feminine energy from you.
Emotional damage. Why are you gonna go out like that? Why?
Hey, listen. This is an open discussion. They share what they really think. I think it's hilarious. Just to be like, so I've been working towards this my whole life.
Yeah,
you failed.
Yeah, I see.
She's looking at me like, it's not working, buddy.
That's all right. I totally
so when you
respect
say
that.
you're a man, then it's like, I don't see that.
Maybe it's the editing, but to come, you say.
Hey, listen.
Provide a little bit more, my girl.
Maybe she didn't.
You was ready to go in.
That looked like a cut though.
That looked like a cut. Maybe she said some flavor and shit.
Yeah. And
they were like, "Yo,
that's transphobic.
We're Jubilee, but we're gonna cut that."
Yeah. Let's find out.
choice. And
Yeah, like he has this, you have a daughter. Do you really want to be guided by the ambiguous, define yourself as however you want to define yourself? And for her mind to be molded and shaped by men who, no disrespect, women who turn themselves into men and then turn themselves back and a lot of dissatisfaction.
Hey, listen, I ain't mad at it. Even if I don't agree, let her do her thing.
That's what the conversation is, but I'm just saying I was just taken by surprise.
That someone said I don't see trans women as women.
That's not
what she said.
She said
I don't see a trans man as a man.
She said,
that's what she said.
She said your process is disrespectful. That's what she said. That's what she said. Okay.
Say there's a lot of dissatisfaction when the root of the problem wasn't the gender, it was everything else.
It's actually very
I feel like
rates of detransitioning, but that's neither.
That's also a minority of the population.
It feels like you're bundling a lot of ideas, which makes it hard to respond. But
well, because there's so much data to support
Can you repeat what's the main question?
Do you want your daughter's mind to be formed and shaped by a society that tells her it's okay to be masculine and to be a man, and that she doesn't need a man, and that it's better off for her to be alone and put her career first and not have children?
I think it's more likely than not that she'll probably follow a more conventional path. If my daughter grows up and she wants to dress like a boy, like great. If she, for whatever reason, is experiencing gender dysphoria, like we would navigate that together. But that, to me, it doesn't scare me. And I would all the more want to live in a world that...
I feel like that's sad. Because it's because my son, I encourage him. I say, you are to be, and I really don't care the backlash. You're supposed to be attracted to women. And
Isn't
I tell
that a lot
him,
of pressure?
and I ask him,
What if he's not?
Because life for transgender individuals, and my son's African American as well, is very freaking hard. I don't know if we can swear, I'm sorry.
You can.
I'm not gonna tell you how to parent because I think that's their child. But I mean, rejecting your child's identity if they carry it over a long period of time probably has negative effects. Like my kid, she said you have to be attracted to women. What if your kid's gay? No, you're going to be attracted to women. Do you think that's going to make them better? You don't think you're going to put them at risk for self-deletion because they're not attracted to women? You know what I mean? Like, I'm all fine for wanting to enforce your household how you want to enforce it, but you also have to understand your child isn't what you want to mold them into. Your child is still its own individual to some degree. They may be attracted to women, they may be attracted to men. You can't choose that for them. You can try to influence them, you can have those conversations, you can take your time with making any decisions. That's your parenting. But you can't choose for your child who they're going to be attracted to, what all these things are going to be the decisions they're going to make. I'm just saying, to me, that seems a very dangerous way to parent somebody, because I know plenty of people who've had to hide their whole lives who they are from their parents, and that didn't turn out well for a lot of them. Or their relationship with their parents. So I would probably disagree with her on that point, even if I understand the reluctance of wanting to embrace your kid's whole like new gender identity just because they feel whimsical about it. Like, I'm fine with parents wanting to be very careful, very prudent, maybe even against it, but I don't know. This is the way she talks. She's like, I'm gonna choose what my son's gonna be.
And it's hard to debate her because, like he said, she is doing an amalgamation of a lot of things, putting all different things together, and so it's hard to even stick to one thing. So the minute you go onto that thing, she flips onto something else. So just the response that she did about, would you want that for your daughter? Yeah, I would want that to remember because I want. Well, that's sad. And not go into explaining why it's sad and just like, well, I want that for my kid, so it's sad that you don't want that for your kid. I don't see that that's how the world works. If you don't want that, that's you.
I just tell them.
Okay, but to not be their true self, if that's truly how they feel, it feels like that would be.
No, they're not their true self.
That's this way. Society has influenced everybody to be like, you know.
When you say I can identify, I can be whatever I want. If I want to say, I'm Beyonce today, I can now just be Beyonce,
But do you actually believe that?
I do. I kind of feel like I don't think you believe it. Genuinely.
Let's talk about men.
Here's the other thing. Men are falling behind. Is it because of feminism, or is there socioeconomic factors that we're not looking at?
Well, how do we define falling behind?
Let's
what do you see as falling behind?
What's falling behind? So people in America, not just men, everybody is getting poor. This has nothing to do with
feminism. Well, that's not true. That's a mental state.
Oh my days.
Yeah. Hey, you struggling financially, that's a mental state. Like,
you are mentally poor.
Yeah. I understand the idea of like not being financially literate or maybe not having the mindset for abundance, but you being poor, that's a mental state. Meanwhile, gas and the cost of living and rent is through the roof every fucking where. Like, come on, bro.
No, it's not true. This is economic data. We're falling behind.
Well, you can blame a president for that.
Okay, and the other thing is, what do you define as masculinity? It can be subjective.
Tell us, what do you define masculinity?
I think masculinity is whatever you want it to be.
That's not an answer. You can't just say masculinity is whatever you want it to be. This is like the whole thing I have that's so retarded with this ideology. It's like, a woman's whatever you want it to be, so then why do you want to be a woman? What are you even subscribing to? If it's not a defined thing to some degree or some parameters,
Then
even though
why are you
it
trying
can
so
be
hard to
modified
switch on
to some degree, it's got to be something.
Yeah.
If it's not something, then what the fuck are you transitioning to?
Like, I understand that someone being fluid wants to be fluid and doesn't see that, right? Because it can be anything. Yeah, well, they are not set on one thing. But to all the people that want to transition, they are basing themselves on an idea that they have. If they don't feel comfortable with what they have, then it's considered one thing. It could be whatever you want it to be. Wrong.
That don't make no sense.
There's some things that are considered masculine and some other things that are considered feminine. And when you come out of there, you feel some type of way, and how you're treated, right? It's either or.
Yeah.
And then you try to transition to it, it's because that fits in parameters of masculinity or femininity. That's what it is.
It doesn't have to be this objective thing where it's like, oh, you're masculine, you're not. Like, so it could be different from our society to another society. And actually, in some countries, like men who don't provide for their families or are not the sole provider are not seen as
But are we
masculine.
talking about other countries, or are we talking about the U.S.?
Even that, in some countries, men are not provide. They're still in those countries with the parameters of those countries. That's what men do. They're not providers, and it fits into what men are doing in those countries.
Listen, if you look at most countries, you're going to see overlapping features of what masculine looks like for the most part.
Yeah.
There's going to be a few places where it might be an exception. But for the vast majority of the planet, ideas of what masculinity should look like are pretty similar. It's why if I took a person in Uzbekistan and then I showed them 7 individuals and I said, can you define them as men or women, they would get it right vast majority of the time. So the idea that this is just this amorphous thing that nobody can define or we can't really see, that's not true. We do have a general idea of what it is, though it can be different with some level of variance. We generally know. I don't know. I hate the way that they talk about this because it feels like a Weasley way out of answering a question that's really fundamental to the whole discussion.
When I heard the prompt and I heard that, I thought about men falling behind, I thought more like mental health, like suicide is more common with men.
We're gonna go here.
No, but it's true. Like men
But it's such
commit suicide at higher rates.
Like I'm not saying mental health is.
Yeah, hey, bitch, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
He's agreeing with you.
This dude said one sentence and you just start rattling it off. Oh, this is such a... Let him fucking talk.
And the worst thing is that...
Yeah, sometimes women need to be told to shut the fuck up. Not because they're women, but because they're cutting off somebody else. And shut the fuck up.
And the worst thing is that he's saying that... He said, yes, men are high at... Blah, blah, blah. Like, he said something against what you... If you would just listen, you would understand that...
I can see why you don't think women should be in positions of leadership, because you probably define it based off your own temperament. I would not want you in any position of leadership. You need to shut the fuck up.
It's an issue. It is an issue, and obviously a lot of men are experiencing a lot of pressure.
Yeah. You heard like the term death of despair.
Men are committing suicide more. Men are dying from alcohol-related illnesses more, and they're also dying from drug abuse and drug overdose more.
Correct.
And that's an increasing trend in society.
Yeah.
And then you see educational gaps.
No, there's no denying that. Like, young men are abandoning colleges at a rapid
it's a lot of pressure to be a man.
They're also far lonelier than women are right now.
Yep.
And
women are the
Hold on, can I finish my point? Sorry. I'm like, don't let me lose my train of thought. They're abandoning colleges. Women make up, they enroll in college at a 60% rate. Women are earning more than men nowadays, right? So,
hold
we can get to the wage gap.
It's about enrollment. So are they having other jobs? Yeah, probably. Sure. But I'm saying, like, men are not going to these institutions. Why?
Go back to a point that you said really quick, where you talked about like the mental health of men and how the stigmatization of men addressing their mental health. Yeah. What system are we in?
Patriarchy. He's setting you up. Let's see if you say it. Yeah. He's going towards patriarchy.
It's setting you up.
Listen.
Smash.
Hey, shout out to patriarchy. It's like an all-purpose glue.
Did you say
your car broken down? Patriarchy.
Patriarchy is a...
Your pan got a hole? Patriarchy. Like, it just seems like this shit fixes or is the problem.
Patriarchy is a duct tape of feminism.
Go!
You see that
all
shit everywhere.
All purpose, all around
Yeah.
So
we are in a patriarchal system.
Hey! Patriarchy! Patriarchy!
Hey!
Patriarchy! Patriarchy.
Jesus Christ.
Acting like patriarchy didn't build some shit.
No, let me tell you.
Those
So
are the bounds we are within currently.
There's a
That's
lot
toxic
Can I have
masculinity.
Mason complete his point? I'll encourage you to let the other person finish the point, and then, of course, you can take it forward, but let them talk.
Just real quick, the systemic structures we are in
Yes.
are patriarchy. That is what has caused men to have this massive stigma around mental health,
Sure.
where we don't feel empowered to reach out. Men tend to not go to therapy. That leads to suicide. That leads to all of these big things. That's not caused by feminism. That was happening well before the feminist movement.
Okay, I'm gonna just say this. Maybe you believe in the patriarchy and all this, whatever. You need to demonstrate what it looks like. Just saying that fucking word and why it stops us from going to therapy. How does a patriarchy do that? In what ways? Okay, I'm just so sick and tired of hearing the word patriarchy as this amorphous power structure that nobody can see but everyone believes is there, and you don't explain how it tangibly affects us or touches us. And vast majority of the time that people say it, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Do you?
Yeah.
How is it stopping us from getting, what, is it like men saying therapy's stupid? Is that like, how common is that? Like, I want to hear some examples. Don't just say a fucking word and assume everybody has, because nobody knows what you're talking about.
The patriarchy is Jesus. Everybody believes in it. Nobody sees him. Nobody.
That's
but
facts.
it rules everything. It's Jesus. It's God.
Sky Daddy been doing this thing.
Stop calling it Sky Daddy. I can't. It's like when you're praying, instead of saying Amen, you're like, yes, Daddy. That's weird, bro.
Hey, listen.
You calling it Sky Daddy?
As long as he's a
weird,
father,
bro.
don't matter what name you use.
Came into these new
Let him
waves.
finish. There's a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, and economists, professors, all these people coming out saying that the actual psychology department is feminized. I know.
I'm processing what you're saying.
The psychology
It's weird, but the
department?
way that everything's processed is for women. So women and men process information differently. Men are like this in their brain. Women are, it's all over. And like, what the hell does that mean?
Well, it's
It
left
means
brain, right
that
brain.
when you
I wish it was
process
that
like
simple.
men need to solve the problem before they can process the emotion.
Women are emotional.
react on emotion.
Yeah, that's it.
But so women have a tendency, not a tendency, they do better with talk therapy. That doesn't always work for men. Men do better when they are kind of working with a coach or somebody that's going to be like, this is what you have to do, and then come
Like
back
massive
to how you
action
do it.
That's why mentors
So-
work. That's why men need
He had a thought, though. Can we let him finish his thought?
The same problems with the military, a lot of the suicide rate. Even though there is therapy services, they're actually actively discouraged. And it's because of this masculine energy in the military, because it is still, even to this day, a very ultra-masculine institution. And there's these negative energies saying like, hey, no, you shouldn't like go talk. That's what these fucking do.
But that's
But-
toxic
Well, it's
masculinity.
interesting.
Yes,
Well, actually,
but it
That's
comes
not
from
patriarchy.
it comes from a
There's a
place of
difference.
no, it comes from a place where it's like, oh, that's not what men do. Just suck it up and push on. And that's why a lot of these guys end up killing themselves.
But what branch were you in? Can I ask?
I was in the army. I
Okay.
was,
So you're an athlete, correct? And in the military, what is in the military that makes everything work within the military? It's a structure, right?
yes, it's a structure.
It's a system, right? Who runs the military? Who is at the very top of the command?
the commander-in-chief, the
Correct.
president of the United States. A couple hundred years,
But I'm making a point here. So there's one person at the very top. Even if you take the commander-in-chief away, there's your general, right? Then there's lieutenant general, there's corporal, and I forget all those privates, etc.
Yeah, she skipped like 1,000 ranks, but yeah, fair enough. Sorry.
Yeah.
She went from president
to a corporal.
vice president, the motherfucker in the kitchen, the little boy at the door, first president's dog, like that mother. So you know how you're below the fucking dog in the chain of command, right? That's why it works. Because there's the dog and then there's the president. Sorry. She went from general to corporal. I'm like, corporal like one above fucking private. No. It's just funny. It's just funny. It just made me laugh. I'm not gonna lie. It's just the way she described it. But okay. And this guy, he sit back and like, yeah, what the fuck is this bitch talking about? But he's a feminist, so he can't say the B word. I said it for you, bro.
There's a system. One person is at the top of that system, and he has supporting members underneath him, all the way down to private. And that's what patriarchy was, quote, patriarchy was designed. It's a system of one person taking a leadership position, and they make decisions for the greater good, utilitarianism.
You see that face? That's that, what the fuck is this bitch talking about?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Basically, but I know what she's trying to say. She's trying to make the point that patriarchy is good. It's not all bad.
Yeah.
And she's trying to make the difference between toxic masculinity, which is an umbrella term for everything that is masculine.
Amen.
And there's a difference between patriarchy and people. The thing is, she said a lot of goofy shit, but I think where she's going is that when people say patriarchy, it's bad. It's always bad when it's actually just a thing. It's not inherently bad, and people say, "Well, it's the patriarchy." It's like, no, it's not necessarily bad.
Right now, what she's describing is a hierarchy.
Yeah.
essentially. And she's saying hierarchies are good, they're necessary for the system to work.
Yes.
Generally. Let's listen.
Of all, meaning the family unit.
That's not really what patriarchy
and actually,
means.
It is. I looked up the definition,
That's actually a very
I
ideal
literally
one.
looked it up yesterday.
I feel
No, you're good.
like
I
I
got
really
lost.
need the male feminists also to respond because I feel like they've spoken 20%. Once they're done with their thought, feel free to interrupt, but let them finish the sentence.
Yeah, like good feminists. Shut the fuck up and let the. It is funny that the anti-feminists have shown way more traditional, quote unquote, masculine energy.
Yeah.
Than
Did you
the
see?
male feminists.
Did you see when the girl
And I
went?
think that's also part of why male feminists lose.
Yeah.
Is because they just sound meek and
Yeah.
weak.
You see when
now,
the
it
girl
may not be true,
is the-
but I'm saying the perception of them is weak and meek. And you're seeing in this conversation, it feels very similar. It looks like they don't command respect. And it looks like they're
No.
not treated well.
There's a girl that said to the guy, "Hey, girls." He was not finished with his point. Let him finish. It's a girl that said that.
Okay, I want to talk. I'm going to talk. I mean, I do think men are falling behind. I feel like the world is just changing in a way where men don't have like a natural place to fit in, or it's not as intuitive as it used to be. And I think men are alone. I heard you throw out the word loneliness, and that does feel true. I just don't think that feminism did that. I just think like the world is changing.
What you said really resonated with me when we define falling behind. What I think about with men is that high suicide rate, that likeliness and proclivity towards violence and aggression. I think about loneliness and not being in relationships with which young men are struggling with a lot right now. And where I feel finding common ground, and feminism does get right in a sense, is that we should expand our horizons as far as how we view masculinity. Men should be able to cry, they should be able to be vulnerable, and that's something that we need to access. But also, these men who are feeling disillusioned with the world right now, they are seeking out male figures. We've seen, the rise of the Jordan Petersons or some of the personalities at the Daily Wire or the Andrew Tates. They are seeking out somebody who's telling them, I want you to access those masculine traits and harness them in a way. I would say Jordan Peterson's probably a more healthy role model for men than, say, an Andrew Tate, but men are going towards these more aggressive, masculinized traits and seeking out men that are trying to harness that for them.
Shout outs to her. I don't know, she's my favorite panelist by far. I would actually say the male feminists probably present a lot more calm and capable of having a conversation, even if I disagree, than the anti-feminists.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they're like, oh, they're emotional, but it's
And
like,
while being emotional.
yeah, it's hysterical. There's just like a lot of yelling or just incapable of
making a
staking on one point and then making that. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're not very congruent with having a
But
conversation.
at least there's one.
Yes,
There's one
she's awesome. I would even say the girl in the dress beside her is also fine.
Women should also be drafted into the military.
Let's do it.
Okay, so her argument is probably going to be women should be drafted. Since they have all these rights, they should have equal responsibilities. And the men are going to say, well, women are just as competent as men, so they should be able. That's what I suspect is going to happen.
If you're gonna vote, you might as well be drafted, baby.
Like I said, not hard, very easy, okay? All right, her, Pearl, all these red pill goofballs, they're the same shit. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you could have seen that come, but the way you presented it, my friend, that's, that is a 10 on 10.
I believe rights come with responsibilities, and we are all responsible individuals. Granted, I'm glad we live in a society where we haven't had the draft since, I think, Vietnam. I think Vietnam.
50 years ago.
I do think that maybe we should relook at the draft and as other options, not just military service. So I was in active duty military, and I was also in the National Guard, and I've fought wildfires, and I've done crowd control. I've done a lot of other things. If you want the same rights, you have to have the same responsibilities, and I think that's just universal based on what you can do and your ability.
I just disagree with this mindset so hard just because the idea of not having women drafted was like, oh my God, delicate flowers. It's like, one, as far as war goes, for a lot of active frontline personnel, it's just not a good idea to have women on the front lines. It's not good for the morale of the troops, and they're just not effective combatants. But two, it's population. If war is as devastating as it is and so many people are going to die, you don't need as many men as women in order to repopulate and have kids at post-war in order to make sure the economy functions again. It's just not logically sensible to want to preserve your country and then send equal amounts of men and women to the front lines to fight, provided it's going to be as deadly as everyone imagines it's going to be. So men were like, that's unfair, that's unfair. Yes, absolutely. That's why you don't get cramps. Only they can get pregnant. Life ain't the same for the both of us. We're built differently. We have different roles. And so if we're talking about life or death, the preservation of a whole society, you just don't send men and women to war equally. Not an answer you might like, but that's just the facts.
This was a very difficult one for me to parse through because I remember when I was getting my birth certificate changed and it was like, all right, time to register for selective service. And I was like, oh God, I have to make this decision now to register.
You don't have a choice.
I know. So I was like, all right, cool.
Drafted, correct me if I'm wrong, would be going into war, would be physically going and doing all.
No, not necessarily. You can do like support roles. Like military, a lot of the roles are not frontline combat. You got cooks, you got intelligence operators, you got clerks, you got vehicle technicians, you got airmen who do repairs on planes, you got people who work on ships, you got everything.
This motherfucker is low-key foul. I saw, you saw what he did. I know what he, yeah, women should get drafted because we have a lot of positions. Cooks.
I make sure I paused too. You notice that? I took a long time to think of after I said cooks. I'm like, what else can these bitches do?
Shit.
It's selective service, so you register to be potentially needed to call for multiple different responsibilities.
But some of them are going.
Right.
Some of them, there was some bad cases.
The part that I would disagree with would be putting women on the front lines. We are physically capable to do a lot. You know, there's different boundaries for women who go into the military who have to do boot camp than there are for men. We can work women as hard as they can, but they're not going to work as hard as men are.
I actually got accepted into the Air Force, which would have been like very nice because I would have had a little desk job. So I went through boot camp and it was hell, and it really messed my back up even more than it already was.
It was not boot camp, it was boob camp. Go!
That was good. That was good. That was good. That was fine.
I think it seems like a lot of the same discussions keep happening with these prompts, which is back and forth of how much is it nature, how much is it nurture, how much are there like intrinsic biological differences between men and women, and how much does that dictate our behavior and our physiology, our biology, versus how much of that is through social learning. So how much it's our culture in terms of,
societal
let's say like
programming?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how high is your sex drive?
Very high. I'm a sex coach.
I'm not asking you
I
personally.
thought you were.
What are you doing?
Nigga, funny, my guy.
I wish the patriarchy would shut this bitch up.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm
I like how it's
So I wasn't asking you.
Sorry.
If you ask everyone that,
Yeah.
You'll see on average differences between men and women. And because of that, I don't think we should dictate whether or not someone is drafted into the military. Because ultimately, I think individuals should have the freedom to make certain choices.
It's a draft, though.
Sure.
And they can go in if they want.
It's
That's
a draft,
the military.
and what you're saying, you don't think people should be treated differently because there can
Exactly.
be metrics
It's
that fall outside
differential
of the data.
treatment. That's
Of
what I'm
course,
getting
yeah.
at.
So there is differential treatment, but I would say that it's completely reasonable to do that because not only are we focusing on the differential treatment, but we're focusing on outcome. So if I'm expecting somebody to go into combat, which is the reason I didn't walk forward, you should also expect that person on an individual basis to be able to meet the exact same standard as every other man that they are going to be fighting with.
So the
Now-
military has made a change on that, by the way.
Yes,
they
they
have a
have.
new individual test that's based on what jobs you're going to do. If you're doing more combat roles, yes, you have to be stronger and tougher, and there are women meeting those standards. That's why
Yes,
things
I
are
agree.
changing, and like I said, I'm not for the draft at all, really. I think it's
Agreed.
a really bad thing, but if it was to happen, like, it should be across all boards, everybody gets treated equal.
If I could choose the possibility of women being drafted or not, I would choose that they're not. Well, I don't want my
anyone.
daughter to be drafted.
I think if you
Hey, you don't want your daughter to be drafted?
No, she'll get this work.
I wish they would have.
If there's a
explained why.
if there's a draft, it's not your daughter anymore. Is the country's person. That's it.
There we go. Okay, well, listen, why don't we just stop there for today?
Yeah.
And if people enjoyed today's video and they want us to do the second half of this, because it is 54 minutes long, we can.
No, you're sick and tired of hearing the broad talk.
The one broad, yes. I want to hear the black lady talk a lot more.
Amala?
So let's start-
Yeah, man, we should talk.
Yeah. So anyways, let us know what you guys think in the comments.